Trust does not always break in one dramatic betrayal. Sometimes it erodes through missed calls, half-truths, broken promises, defensive answers, and moments where someone feels alone with a concern that should have mattered to both people. The relationship may look normal from the outside while trust is quietly losing strength underneath. Trust is the expectation that someone will act with care, honesty, reliability, and respect when it matters. It is not the same as blind belief. Trust is built from evidence. The other person says something, does something, repairs something, or shows up consistently enough for the nervous system to relax. Slow trust loss happens when small disappointments repeat without repair. One forgotten promise may be understandable. 10 forgotten promises become information. One defensive reaction may be stress. A pattern of defensiveness teaches the other person that honesty is not safe. Imagine a partner repeatedly says they will be home by 7 but arrives late without warning. Each incident may have a reason: traffic, work, errands, fatigue. But if the pattern continues, the issue becomes less about the clock and more about whether the person's words can be counted on. Small dishonesty can damage trust even when the topic seems minor. If someone hides spending, deletes messages, exaggerates plans, or edits facts to avoid conflict, the other person may start wondering what else is being shaped. Trust needs accuracy, not just reassurance. Trust also depends on emotional safety. A person may stop sharing fears if every vulnerable moment becomes a lecture, joke, or argument. They may still live together, text normally, and handle routines, but the deeper trust has narrowed. The relationship becomes functional without feeling fully safe. Repair is what prevents small cracks from becoming structural damage. A sincere repair names the behavior, understands the impact, and changes something. "I am sorry you feel that way" does not repair much. "I said I would call and I did not. I see why that made you feel unimportant" gives trust something to rebuild on. Consistency matters because trust is a memory system. The mind tracks what usually happens. If care appears only after a fight and disappears during ordinary weeks, trust remains unstable. If someone is steady when life is boring, stressful, and inconvenient, the relationship learns that care is not just a performance. Defensiveness speeds up trust loss. If every concern is met with excuses, counterattacks, or "you are too sensitive," the other person learns that raising issues is costly. Eventually they may stop complaining, not because trust returned, but because they no longer expect a useful response. People often keep an unspoken ledger. They remember who apologized, who changed, who dismissed, who made effort, and who repeated the same harm. This ledger is not always fair or complete, but it affects the emotional climate. Trust breaks when the ledger shows too many withdrawals and too few deposits. The same process happens at work. A manager who promises support but disappears during pressure loses trust slowly. A colleague who misses deadlines and gives excuses becomes harder to rely on. Professional trust is not only about skill. It is about predictability under real conditions. In families, slow trust loss can be confusing because loyalty remains. A parent may love a child but repeatedly dismiss their feelings. A sibling may be fun but unreliable in serious moments. The bond exists, yet trust becomes limited to certain areas. Love and trust are related, but not identical. The body often notices trust problems before the mind admits them. A person may feel tense before asking a question, rehearse simple requests, check messages for proof, or feel relieved when plans are canceled. These reactions suggest the relationship no longer feels fully dependable. When trust weakens, people may start checking more, asking repeated questions, monitoring tone, rereading messages, or looking for contradictions. This behavior can create more conflict, but it often starts as an attempt to find stability. The deeper issue is not the checking, it is the insecurity that made checking feel necessary. Rebuilding slow broken trust requires slow evidence. One apology helps, but repeated reliability matters more. If the damage involved dishonesty, transparency may be needed for a while. If the damage involved neglect, consistent attention matters. Trust returns when the injured person sees changed behavior without having to beg for it. Not all trust can or should be rebuilt. If harm continues, if accountability is fake, or if the person uses forgiveness as permission to repeat the pattern, distance may be healthier. Trust requires two people, one willing to repair, and one given enough evidence to feel safe again. Trust in others is connected to self-trust. If someone repeatedly ignores their own discomfort, accepts excuses they do not believe, or abandons their boundaries to keep peace, they may stop trusting their own judgment. Healing may require asking, "What did I know earlier that I kept talking myself out of?" A practical step is to name the specific trust injury. Instead of saying, "I do not trust you," say, "When plans change and I find out last, I stop believing I am being considered." Specific language gives the other person a chance to respond to the real issue rather than defend their entire character. Trust breaks slowly because relationships are made of repeated evidence. Small actions teach the nervous system what to expect. Broken promises, defensiveness, secrecy, and neglect may seem minor one by one, but together they create a pattern that the heart eventually believes. Trust often breaks through small mismatches between words and behavior. Someone promises to call and forgets. They say they are fine but act cold for days. They agree to change something and then repeat it quietly. Each moment may be explainable alone, but together they teach the other person to stop relaxing. The slow part is important because the person losing trust may not notice it immediately. At first they excuse the pattern. Then they start checking. Then they stop sharing as much. By the time the problem is obvious, the relationship may already be operating with caution instead of openness. Trust also breaks when apologies do not lead to different behavior. An apology can calm the moment, but repeated apologies without change become evidence of unreliability. The words may sound caring, yet the nervous system begins to believe the pattern more than the promise. Small choices matter during repair because trust listens for consistency. Being on time, following through, telling the truth before being caught, and staying kind during stress can do more than one dramatic apology. Repeated steadiness is what slowly lowers the guard. Rebuilding trust requires predictable evidence over time. That means doing what you said, naming mistakes quickly, answering reasonable questions, and not demanding instant forgiveness. Trust returns slowly because the injured person is not only listening to words. They are watching whether reality has actually changed. This is why rebuilding trust cannot be rushed by saying, "You should be over it by now." The injured person may need repeated proof in ordinary moments. Honest updates, kept promises, calmer conflict, and behavior that matches the apology when nobody is watching. The hopeful part is that trust can also rebuild slowly through repeated evidence. Not through speeches, pressure, or demands to move on, but through behavior that becomes reliable enough to relax around. Trust is not restored when someone insists they are safe. It returns when their actions make safety believable again.